Hello, hello, hello. This is Kenny Perkins, aka your cancer guy. And once again, as always, I always try to bring phenomenal guests. Today is nothing short of that. We got a gentleman here in Southern California who want to talk to you. If you've been experiencing esophageal cancer, you've been diagnosed, some you this episode is for you, really, because sometimes we don't know what to do when we get diagnosed with the cancer, especially esophageal, right? Because swallowing is very important if you're going to drink, if you're going to eat, right? So, what are some ways that our next guest got through some of the difficult times that he was going through? What are some of the ways that he coped with just the hardship of being diagnosed with cancer? Well, we're going to be bringing that to you today. This gentleman right here is serious minded, but at the same time, free spirited. I love that. And so
Yep.
I hope you see those characteristics and I hope you pick out the gems that we listened to today because this is what we're doing. We'll be dropping nuggets. Please, let's bring on our next guest. We're talking about Mark Sevillano Jr. What's going on, Mark? Hey,
Hey,
there it
what's up,
is.
Kenny Perkins Jr.? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today and so happy to speak to whoever's listening, speak to you, and definitely excited to share my story and talk about this cancer that so many people are being affected by. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. Such an honor to have you, and thank you so much for joining us. And let me tell you, Mark, let's get to people a little bit about who you are and what exactly your background before we get started, so they get to know the person.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm 41 years old. I'm a single father of two kids. I have a boy and a girl. And I was a substitute teacher for 4 years. I actually taught first grade for a year. I've taught high school history and leadership. And I was a wedding officiant. I am a wedding officiant. I've been marrying couples for the past 10 years. And so that's a little bit about me, a Southern California native, born and raised in Whittier, California. And, this is me. This is my life. And this is, I never thought that cancer would be a part of my life, but it's definitely like, taken an impact and shaped the rest of my life. So,
For
but
sure.
yeah, that's who I am. That's a little background, and yeah, I'm those things. Oh, and I'm an author. I've also written a book. So, speaker, author, educator, father, and cancer survivor.
Look, man, I don't know how you juggle all of those things, but I love it. I love it. First and foremost, being a father, what an honor, right? I mean, I don't have kids, but you know, to pour into your kids, I know that's extremely important. I have three nephews, so to be a father and a single father at that, and being able to juggle the things that you're doing, man, much love to you on that, Mark, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, being a father is one of the best things that has ever happened to me. It's changed my life, and it's caused me to be less self-absorbed, less selfish, and you don't really know the amount of love and the capacity you have to love another human being until you have a child of your own. You would take a bullet for that child, in a heartbeat, in a split of a second. So yeah, it's the best. I feel like I kind of messed up everything, or I tend to mess up everything prior. But being a father, I feel like not that I'm perfect at it. No one's ever perfect at it, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to be. This is what I'm good at. This is what gives me joy. So yeah, I love being a father. But being a single father, that's different because that's hard.
Yeah,
That's a lot. You gotta, learn how to comb your daughter's hair. You gotta learn how to, give to both of them if you have more than one child. It's a lot. So, but nevertheless, it doesn't take away the joy and the fulfillment that you get of being a parent. So.
yeah. Mark, that's why I'm listening to you. Me, it's just I don't know where you get that nurturing quality, and maybe but to be a teacher, I mean, you're nurturing kids, right? You're putting them under your wing and teaching them to go to the next level, and
Mhm.
having kids, and you use that same nurturing ability to bring your kids up. Where did that come from?
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. It definitely comes from being childlike and remembering how you felt as a child and remembering who you were as a child. That's the biggest secret. That's all it takes is to remember your thoughts and your heart. And when you were a child, you didn't really know a lot. You were curious about the world. You were innocent minded. So those are the things that I have in my brain when I'm teaching, when I'm nurturing, when I'm giving. I'm coming to these children as someone who remembers how it was to kind of be uncertain or don't really know what that means. So everything I try to explain in an elementary way, in a basic way, so that people can get it no matter what age. So that's a little secret that I want to let you in on is remember how you felt and how the things that you thought when you were a little kid, and that will help you teach and nurture and mentor other people now that you're an adult. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Uh,
and
dropping
my parents and my parents too.
Yeah,
Definitely you get that from you give what you get. So I got a lot of nurturing and love and support, and so I'm able to give that back.
yes,
But yeah, but that main one I would say is definitely remembering how you felt as a child and going through that channel. That's really important as an educator, as a teacher, as a parent, as a mentor.
for sure. So prior to you being diagnosed, right? What was Mark doing? What was life like for Mark?
Oh man, I wish I can say it was great, but I was healing from a divorce. I was married for 11 years, and I was very heartbroken when we both decided to split and not be together anymore. And um, it was tough. It was very tough. It was the first time ever that I joined therapy and signed up for therapy. Before that, I was kind of like, nobody needs therapy. Like just get over it. Just have fun. Just watch a movie or like read a book or pray. Like you don't need therapy. And as soon as I experienced such a heartbreak and such a tragedy in my life, I was like, where like Googling like nearest therapist, you know? And so 4 years ago I started therapy, and off and on I've been going, and I'm very proud to say that like 3 weeks ago I'm done with therapy. Therapy is a tool to help you when you're feeling stuck in life. Uh, Therapy is a tool that helps you get unstuck. And so once therapy takes its course and does what it needs to do, you feel unstuck and you don't feel stuck anymore. And so it took me a while. It took me about three therapists later, 4 years later, off and on, and now I don't feel stuck anymore. And my heart feels healed. I feel like I kind of unraveled and navigated the pain that I was in. So if you're listening, there's hope, and don't be in therapy for a long time. Like just feel stuck, get unstuck, and move on with your life and appreciate the tools that the therapy or the therapist gives you. Uh,
Yes.
but yeah, yeah, before cancer, I was on a healing journey. I was uh, I was completing my master's degree in education. So I have two master's degrees. I have a master's in leadership development and a master's in education. So I was very in like an academic mindset, navigating my life as a single father, and definitely just trying to continue my life. So I traveled for the very first time to Europe. I went to Italy and Paris and Spain and the UK. And so before cancer, I was um, I was just on, like I said, on a healing journey who was trying to have fun in life and navigate single fatherhood and build my career. So that's who I was before.
Yeah. Well, what a journey. So you're in this process of trying to heal,
Yeah,
going through this devastation. And if anyone ever knows about a divorce, it's like a death.
it is.
It's like a death. So here you are in this healing process, trying to, reconnect with yourself and heal, going through what like a death-like experience,
Yeah.
and then you get this diagnosis. What led up to that? What made you go in to say, "Hey, something's not right with my throat. I need to
Yeah.
go get this checked."
Yeah, so as I was healing and recovering from the divorce and all of that, I I experienced about a good 6 months of solid, like, starting to feel better. Like I was like, oh man, these past 6 months have been good. Like I started running 5Ks and signed up for a bunch of 5Ks and started being more active. Me and my ex-wife were getting along and we were cordial with each other and we had sort of like a like a good civil relationship. So that was going well, and my kids were thriving in school, and it was just like a good solid 6 months. But about month four, I started having trouble swallowing, and I was like, oh man, maybe it's all the running I'm doing. I need to just drink more water and just gulp it down. So I started having trouble swallowing. I just thought maybe I was not drinking enough water, and I didn't think much of it. But my family, my mom and my dad, they're like, you should go get checked. That doesn't sound right. And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Well, the swallowing started progressively getting worse, and it rapidly started changing to where I would eat a meal, and when I would swallow, I would literally have to like physically push my chest in like that and down, and I would pound my chest to make the chunks of food kind of trickle down my throat, my esophagus. And so that wasn't normal. You don't see people eating their meal and like I got to get it down, like it just became a habit, and it got so bad that it would bring tears to my eyes when I would try to eat and swallow and pound my chest. And so that's obviously abnormal, not nobody, that's not normal. It's not a normal thing. And so that's when I decided to make an appointment with my primary doctor, see what he has to say. Went into my primary doctor's office, explained to him what was going on. He didn't really think much of it. He was just like, oh, okay, maybe, I don't know, we'll run some tests or something, and I'll schedule you far out in a couple months for a swallow serum test where it measures your saliva, and how everything's going down. So I just figured, okay, I trust you. I guess I'm okay, and I'll just get that swallow test in a few months. Um, well, 3 weeks go by and it's very, very bad. At this point now I can't even swallow liquids. So it went from not being able to swallow my food, the solids, to now I can't even swallow water. It feels like it's just sitting right here at the top of my throat. And so that's when I said, you know what? No more primary doctor. Now I'm going to the emergency doctor. And so I went to the emergency room. I waited there for like a long time, 8 to 10 hours. Finally got in, and they were able to do a CT scan and some blood work. And that's when they found a strawberry sized mass sitting right here at the bottom of my throat. And yeah, they didn't know at the time if it was cancerous or not, but they told me that they found a mass in my throat. And I wish they would have said a tumor, because they used tumor and mass simultaneously. And so a mass kind of felt like, oh, okay, maybe a buildup of some tissue, and it's like a mass. Maybe they could inject something to dissolve it, or maybe this was my thinking. Like maybe, I could get a pill and they could just, the mass could dissolve. I didn't think much of it, but no one told me it was a tumor. So it was a tumor that could possibly be cancer. And so that's what they found in me, and that's when this whole journey sort of started.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, man, you were definitely trying to endure. I
I
mean,
was.
listening to you, you did not want to go to that doctor. You're pounding your chest and having a little hard time drinking the water. You're like, "But this a pass,
I had I had 5Ks to run and 2 kids to raise. I ain't
Yeah,
nobody got time for doctors
got
and
no time for that.
oh no. Nah.
you know, but thank God, right? We were able to really locate that and see that it was a mass. So at that point, what was your thought process when they're telling you, hey, you know what? Did they do the biopsy there and you had to wait, or they discharged you and you came back? How did it work when you first got the news, like, hey, you know what, Mark Jr., this is cancer?
Great question. So they did not biopsy me right away, because of the fact that I was pounding my chest so much. It my whole esophagus became inflamed, and it was just very irritated. All the tissue had blown up, and so they put me on an all liquid diet. They discharged me and put me on an all liquid diet and said, "Come back in a week when your esophagus is rested and it's not as inflamed from shoving food down it for the past month and a half." And so they sent me home, and they told me to get biopsied, when all the inflammation goes down. So I went home, went to sleep, woke up, went to my last day of work as a substitute teacher before summer had started, summer break. And then that Saturday, I ran a 5K in Santa Monica, California. And then Monday, I got the phone call. They're like, "Yeah, you need to come in for a biopsy like pretty quickly, because we're concerned about this mass, about this tumor." So that was my little week or weekend. But unfortunately, before I was able to go into my biopsy appointment, I ended up going into sepsis shock, and I almost died, because my body started convulsing and I started shivering and my body was shutting down. Because what sepsis shock is when your bloodstream gets contaminated and there's bacteria in your blood. So your blood flows all throughout your body. And so that's attacking your whole entire body, which causes you to go into a shock. And so I went into sepsis shock and I was rushed to the hospital. They were just, you can see it in all of the nurses' eyes. They were like, this guy needs help. He is in critical condition. He's not doing well. And so they didn't know which antibiotics to give me in order to fight off that bacteria. So they just gave me the strongest antibiotics and were just pumping it through my veins in hopes that anything will kind of regulate the bacteria that was flowing through my bloodstream. So ended up being they 24 48 hours later they found the correct antibiotics, and they were able to regulate that bacteria, that sepsis shock. My body calmed down, and I was in the hospital for Father's Day 2024. I was in the hospital just spending my Father's Day there, and for the next like 3 or 4 days I was in the hospital recovering from sepsis shock. And then finally they were able to do a biopsy and go in. They went in with a pediatric scope because my airway, the hole in my esophagus was very thin. It was like closing up, and so they were able to get a small biopsy, and then I learned that I do in fact have cancer. And
Yeah.
so that was, they told me over the phone. They told me I was alone in a hospital room. They gave me a call. They said, "You have cancer. Follow up with us on Monday. Have a great weekend." And so that was how I found out that I had
Have a
cancer.
great weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you? Yeah, it's like okay. I mean, actually, I think I told them have a great weekend. They were just kind of like, you have cancer. It was it's not like the movies where they sit you down and the doctor puts his hand on your hand and says like leans in and says, it's unfortunate, but you have cancer. No, they just called me on a Friday afternoon on the phone. You have cancer. Follow up with us on Monday. Next call. So that's how it happened for me.
My goodness, man.
Mm,
So what was your thought process? I mean, you're sitting there here in the hospital and you're getting this phone call, you've been diagnosed. I mean, you just went through, a healing process. You're trying to recover. You did a run, you did a 5K run. You're feeling good, healthy in the sense of your body, but
yeah,
internally there's something going on, growing in you.
yeah,
And you finally get this news. How did that what was your thoughts?
yeah. Sometimes I hate going back to that moment because it's so tragic and so emotional. Anybody who's ever gotten that call or that news that you have cancer, those three words, "you have cancer," just immediately change your life. And so, yeah, I mean, I was in just immediately when I hung up the phone in that hospital room, I started gathering my thoughts, and I had a million questions. I wanted to know what type of cancer, what stage cancer. I wanted to know, am I going to enter chemotherapy for treatment? Am I going to get radiation? Uh, am I going to die? There was so many, a flood of questions going through my mind. Um, but once all those questions kind of went in my mind, this new set of questions started happening, which were really a preparation. I went into preparation mode as to how am I going to tell my parents? How am I going to tell my kids? How much do I have in my savings account if I were to pass away? Do I have my life insurance all settled for, if I do pass away and we have to pay for the funeral? I started really preparing, and that's probably the teacher in me or the parent in me, but I started going into like a mode of preparation. And maybe that was a fight or flight mechanism too, or like a coping mechanism because
Mhm.
I just I put those feelings aside of what I was going through, and I started trying to be there for others and my kids and my life and prepare what might what I might have to do in the future. So yeah, so I ended up telling my parents, telling my kids. I ended up trying to be there for everyone as they're listening to this news, trying to calm everyone as they're receiving and processing this news. So it wasn't until about 4 or 5 days later to where I was alone with my own thoughts, and I finally processed like, Mark, you have cancer. This is huge. This is life changing, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad about it or sad about it. And so 4 or 5 days later was the first time I cried after receiving the diagnosis, and the first time I really sat face to face with it and said, "Wow, I have cancer. This is my reality right now." So
Sure.
yeah,
So now, I mean, it's news like that is never easy to take, and it's, I love that you walked us through the process a little bit because it's shock.
yeah,
The first, right? I mean, it's what I heard you say. You just, and then the shock just, you kind of left your feelings to the side and try to distract it with utilizing how I'm going to do this and that. And then all those skills you had of being a nurturer, and you can see it from what you just told me. And it was like, you know, until 4 or 5 days later. And so I hope people listening to how Mark Jr. handled that, because it's not it's not uncommon. And if you've gone through something like that, I know this resonates with you. So, allow yourself to feel what you need to, you know. Um, Sometimes it's hard to accept news like that. And so Mark, 5 days, you feeling that, it finally hits you. What is your what was the doctors and your family? Did you guys have a plan of attack, or what they decided on how they were going to treat you? What was going to be the regimen?
yes. So thankfully, the doctor, my oncologist, they saw that I was pretty healthy from growing up and all the prior years. And so they said, because you're a pretty relatively healthy young man, we're gonna throw you into chemotherapy right away, and we're gonna give you not the highest, most powerful treatment, but the one right below it, the second highest treatment. So I think the top one, if you're in the chemo world, it's like the devil's blood, or I don't know what it's called. Something maybe you could help me out. Do you know what it's called? The devil's I don't know. So, whoever's listening, you know what I'm talking about. But that's like the top most powerful chemo that you can receive in your body, and then there's like some below it. Mine was the second to the highest, most powerful bag of chemo. So they decided to put me on that one, and they decided to give me 4 rounds of chemotherapy to shrink the tumor, the strawberry-sized tumor in my throat. And then they were going to do an operation where they remove some of my esophagus and remove the shrunken tumor, and then pull up my upper intestines and make sort of like a connecting new esophagus. And then after that major robotic surgery, they were going to then give me 4 more rounds of chemotherapy and then see my progress from there. So that was the regiment, that was the plan. And I was just saying yes to everything because I was scared. I had no idea about the chemo world or the treatment world, cancer world. So at this point in my journey, I was just like, yes, doctor, whatever it takes, doctor, whatever you recommend, doctor, yes. Um, I was kind of thankful. Well, initially I wanted radiation because I just thought it was zap it and be done with it. So that was my thinking. But looking back in hindsight, I am happy that I did not get radiation. I'm happy that I received the chemo that I received. But yeah, 2 weeks after my diagnosis, I was in the chemo chair, already pumping, that liquid into my veins and receiving treatment.
Yeah. So being that it was the second highest dose that you can receive, how did that make you feel? Were you able to continue with work? Did you stop work? How did that affect your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so it was summer break. So I was a substitute teacher, and so there was no school during that time, that 2.5 month period for summer break. So it kind of happened at a perfect time. However, one of the most heartbreaking things that I ever had to do was I'm also a wedding officiant. So I marry couples for a living, and I had my whole 2024 booked. So I had a lot of couples that I had to personally call and email and say, unfortunately, I got diagnosed with cancer. I cannot do your wedding after all. Um, I did have another officiant, a replacement officiant that I offered them if they wanted to take the replacement. But it was difficult because this is their special day. It was out of my control. I didn't foresee that I would have cancer, but it still doesn't take away the news that you have to, the added pressure that you have to give to these couples who wanted you specifically to marry them. So that was a part of my career that I hated at the time because I had to cancel these weddings. I had to, I was on summer break, so I wasn't teaching, but I was affected by the chemo. Even though I was healthy, I still had some complications as far as nausea, diarrhea. I still couldn't swallow, so I was thinning out. I was losing a lot of weight, and I was by round two of chemo, I was losing my hair. Like all of my hair was just like falling out, and that's another thing that is kind of morbid. No human should have to go through the experience of taking a shower or just like getting chunks and gobs of their hair coming out because of the chemo. I think it was like my underarm hair. I had like an itch, and I remember itching and kind of pulling some hair, and just my underarm hair was just coming out, coming out. And that was so surreal and so weird. And it's something that you never forget as a cancer patient. Something that is just kind of morbid. It feels unnatural. You don't want hair just to be falling out of your body. So that
Mhm.
was weird too. But yeah, I quickly learned that chemo is not fun. It kills all the cells in your body, the good and the bad. So you're just like, I was on the couch, just like there. I felt like a shell, and I was just there on the couch, and I really wanted the days just to speed by and pass me by. Um, I'm a writer. I write books and short stories and poems and everything. So I actually wrote a song called Days Pass Me By. And it was just like, please just speed up the time, sundown, sunset, like make that speed up, in 2K, 4K, like just make it go fast. And so, yeah, that was a really hard time in my life. The worst part about it was not being able to tickle my kids anymore or take them to school anymore. I stopped driving because I was so weak, and it was a difficult time. I went from living life to being secluded and being suppressed down to feeling like a shell
For
and
sure.
feeling just no energy, no enthusiasm for life. Definitely still had hope. I still had my faith, but I was just weak and in a physical state of just weakness. It was for the first time in my life, I felt really dependent on my mom because she was my caretaker, and
Mm.
really dependent on the doctors and really dependent on other people, which as a 40-year-old independent man, when you start having to ask for someone to bring you a glass of water because the water's too heavy to hold, that's humbling. It was humbling. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mark Jr., I was going to ask you that, you are naturally the nurturer and you go about doing that. But during this difficult time, who was there to nurture you and how did you receive that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Kenny. Um, So my mom, so I'm divorced, and so I ended up moving back home with my parents and living there. And so my mom and dad really stepped it up and treated, I'm their firstborn. I'm their child. I have four siblings. Well, three other siblings. It's me, my sister, my other sister, and my brother. And so there's four of us. And I'm the oldest. I've been out of the house for like 15 years. And all of a sudden, I'm back in my parents' house and they're caring for me as if I am a kid again. And so I'm in hindsight, I'm really thankful for that time because it really brought me and my mom especially very close. And me and my mom started having moments together and and it was because of my cancer journey and because she became my caretaker, it made me appreciate her as a mom. And I don't know why it was kind of hard for me like to comprehend that she sees me as her baby. She sees me as her child. She will do anything for her child, just as I would do anything for my two children. But I wasn't correlating that. I wasn't giving her enough credit and giving her enough honor as to she sees me the way I see my kids. And so, because of cancer and because of that journey, now I'm like, I get it, mom. I get it, dad. Like, you guys actually care about me and would do anything for me, even at my adulthood, even as me being a 40-year-old, now a 41-year-old man, you guys would still go out of your way to care for me and raise me and treat me well and help me through this cancer experience. So I just appreciate my parents so much because they really stepped it up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it sounds like this experience just highlighted, right? It was the aha moment,
Yeah.
and listening to you, it sounds like maybe you didn't appreciate the things that your mom was doing as growing up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went through waves of like, all right, but majority, like I would say like a good 60% of the time, I was just taking it for granted. Like, you're my parents, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to make me food. You're supposed to buy me a car at 16 or so. That sounds so spoiled, and that sounds so like I was taking things for granted. And many of us do. Many of us just don't think twice. Like, food's on the table, cool, I'm eating. Like, groceries are in the refrigerator and stuff like that. And you just really sometimes we take things for granted like that. And it's when these experiences happen that you really begin to think like, wow, like they're working hard to provide. They're working hard to care for me. They're stopping their lives so that I can heal and get well and get better and recover. Like, they're sacrificing still, even though I'm a full grown adult, they're still sacrificing and willing and loving enough to sacrifice. So I have great parents. And if mom and dad, if you're watching, I'm sorry if I ever took advantage of you or ever took you guys for granted, because now I get it. I get
Yeah.
it.
So talk to us about recovery,
Yeah.
because a lot of times that looks different for a lot of different people.
Mhm.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm so glad we're talking about recovery because I feel like a lot of cancer people, uh, they talk a lot about treatment, a lot about diagnosis, and a lot about what they're feeling during the cancer journey. But I want to highlight what it feels like after cancer, survivorship, and recovery, and all the things that come along with that. I think it's very important to talk about. So thank you for that question. Um, Recovery is sometimes, oddly enough, a little bit more difficult than the actual cancer journey, in my opinion. When you're going through cancer, you're on a flow. You have your all your appointments set. You're frequently going to treatment. You already pretty much know what you're diagnosed with. So just to let you guys know, I was diagnosed with stage 2 esophageal cancer. So, you kind of have everything laid out for you. You're going through the flow. Yes, you're uncertain. Yes, you're afraid. You're going through the motions, but you have sort of this like routine per se. When you're done with cancer, all of that gets taken away. You go to doctor's appointments still periodically just to get checkups, but that flow, that familiarity that you were used to just disappears. And now you're on your own. It's like up to you what you eat, how you're going to live your life moving forward. So for me, I didn't know what recovery would look like until I was there recovering. And so you're in charge of how you want your recovery to be. One thing I do want to say is, um, although there's no more cancer detected in my body anymore after the surgery, the chemo, thank God there's no more cancer detected in my body anymore. But there is still some complications and side effects that I'm still going through till this day, 9, 10 months later, a year later, is I still have a little bit of neuropathy in my fingers and in my toes from the chemotherapy. Um, I have some hair spots. So my hair is growing back, but there's still a little bit of spots or patches where it's not fully grown out yet. I actually need to rest in between tasks. So like after this podcast, I'm using a lot of energy. I'm speaking. I'm using my voice and my energy. After this podcast, I'm probably going to hit the couch and just kind of regroup and things like that. Whereas before cancer, after this podcast, I could go out, hike, have fun, but I've learned that recovery takes time. And,
Mhm.
and I've given myself a lot of grace because before this, I was all about fast-paced life, super like on it with everything, stacking my schedule. But now, I'll do the laundry and then I'll sit down and just rest. I'll cook myself an egg and some potatoes, then I'll sit down and I'll just rest. Now that I don't know for how long that's going to be. Hopefully I can build my strength and recover 100%. But right now that's my life. And sometimes I feel guilty for not having cancer in me anymore because I have friends who died of cancer and I have people who I know who their mom didn't make it, their husband didn't make it after being diagnosed with cancer. So I tend to think sometimes like, man, I sometimes I feel bad or sometimes I don't want to talk about it because I don't want others to feel like, why did Mark live and not so and so? So there's all these things that come along with recovery that don't really get highlighted as much. And it's hard. It's a toll on you physically, emotionally, mentally. You're not the same person. I still have brain fog. So for those of you who know chemotherapy, it gives you brain fog where you're not as witty as you were. You're not as sharp as you were. Sometimes I forget things. Sometimes I misspell things that I knew how to spell before. So there's all these little things, and then the overall arching elephant in the room is there's always that possibility of reoccurrence where the cancer comes back, and so it's like, dang, you're living. Like you're thankful that there's no more cancer in your body, but you have all these little compartments of recovery that you're trying to navigate. And sometimes it feels like a full-time job. Like sometimes it feels like a lot, but nevertheless, I am thankful to be alive and I do not take my life for granted. And nowadays, things don't even bother me that used to bother me. Like if I'm stuck in traffic, who cares? I'll just listen to a podcast or, listen to my favorite songs. Or if the barista gets my order wrong at Starbucks, next time, like little things like that, I don't care about anymore because, hey, I had cancer. Like, like try having that. Like little things like that just roll off your back. So
Well, I tell you, Mark, what you described earlier is a little bit of what they call survivor's guilt, you know,
that's what it's
and
called. Mm.
and why me, and you don't want to. The other people are dying, but why didn't I? And that's it's very common. But hats off to you, because I mean you're still recovering as we speak,
Yeah,
and didn't realize that. And here you are. We really appreciate you coming in here, telling your story, and as you recover, and still healing.
yeah,
It's another portion of healing as well. So, I really appreciate that. I didn't mean to jump that, but so it sounds like you had the 4 rounds of chemo, and then you had surgery as well, too, right?
correct.
Okay.
I had an 8 hour robotic surgery where they went into the side of my torso and my belly, and I have 11 wounds from that, 11 scars, and the surgeons were great. They, operated off of a console, and they had the robotic little arms go in and precisely get whatever they needed to get. And for those of you who don't know, your esophagus is 10 inches from your throat all the way to like the middle of your chest, 10 inches long. They removed 6 inches of my esophagus, totally cut it out. And then they pulled some of my upper intestines and connected whatever was left with my esophagus. And so I think it's called an esophagectomy. And so, and they took out the strawberry-sized tumor that shrunk into like a little acorn size. So they were able to successfully remove all the cancer from my body. And they wanted me to do 4 rounds of chemotherapy after that, but I was having cold feet, and I was researching alternative methods, and I was kind of not 100% um, sure that I wanted to do 4 rounds of chemo. So I wrote to my doctor, my oncologist, and I said, "Hey, I don't want to do any chemo after my surgery. If you get it out, then it's out. Like let's just go on with life." And he wrote back kindly and said, "This is the regimen that we agreed to. Please, I highly, highly consider 4 more rounds of chemo, because if there's any microscopic cancer cells left in you that we can't see, that chemo would then go ahead and eliminate those microscopic leftovers." And those that know me, I love to push back. So I wrote him back again, and I said, what about if we do like 2 chemos instead of 4? And he's like, well, the numbers and the data shows that you have a higher success rate with 4 rounds of chemo after surgery. And so I wrote back again and I said, after careful consideration, I'm only gonna do 1 round of chemo after surgery, and then I'm gonna call it quits because I hate chemo, and I'm like 138 pounds. I'm dwindling away. I'm doing 1 chemo. And he said, all right, that's your decision. And I reassured him that, I'm not going to just do 1 round of chemo and then start living a crazy, erratic life. I have a plan. I'm gonna fast every couple of weeks. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to take care of my body. Like I'm not just stopping chemo, being rebellious, and just gonna, drink soda and get crazy. I'm just, I have a plan. And so once I told him that I had a plan, he felt a little bit more confident in just saying, okay, Mark, 1 round of chemo, and then we'll monitor you, and you'll be on this like 5-year monitor, where we monitor your progress for the next 5 years. So after that 8 hour surgery, I did 1 more round of chemo. And so total, I did 5 rounds of chemo. Um, and and thankfully I'm good. I'm
Yes.
so good.
Yes. You look amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel good. I feel really good.
And then Mark Jr., I always like ask, because dieting is not easy. You
Right.
know, and in this case, it's not just dieting for you, it's a lifestyle change, right? Diet, you can do it for X amount of, right? As you would know, right? You're preparing people for their, I mean, you marry people. So
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
brides to be, or husbands to be, grooms to be, are dieting for the event, and then
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
back to normal. Whereas you, it's not, it's more than a diet, it's a lifestyle change. And so I ask you, how have you dealt with the lifestyle change?
Yeah, it's different because nobody tells you that your mind is the same mind, but your body is different. So in my mind, I can eat a bacon cheeseburger with chili cheese fries and a shake and a soda. In my mind, I can do that. But in reality, I can't. In reality, my body is saying no, for two reasons. One, my my stomach shrunk during this whole process. And so my stomach's really tiny. So whatever I eat, I get full very quickly. And so the doctor said it's going to take about a year or two for my stomach to expand to adult size again. So I'm working on that. So I can't really eat big meals anymore, but my mind wants to. And then I'm working on the physical aspect of where, because I can't eat a lot, I have to be careful what I put into my body. Am I eating for pleasure or am I eating for nutrition? And so that's the difference. Now I'm eating to what type of protein is gonna, what type of food is gonna give me the highest amount of protein with a little bit amount of food, because that's all my body can have right now. So it really just altered the way I think about food, my relationship with food. And don't get me wrong, I still love, a good chocolate chip oatmeal cookie. I still love a Snickers bar, and I'll still eat that here and there. But I also try to eat way more vegetables. I try to drink way more water than I used to. And I'm conscious about what is this food going to provide for me nutritious in a nutritious life. So,
Yes.
mm,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, Mark, I tell you what, now, life after cancer for you, the man, the career, how has that changed?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I've decided after careful thinking that as much as I loved being in the education world for the past 4 years. I don't think I'm going to be a teacher again, at least not anytime soon, because those of you who teach know how stressful teaching can be. So I was very stressed out, and it's a stressful job. And I can't picture being in a room with 30 children trying to manage them with the low energy that I still have today. It just won't work. I mean, they will walk all over me. So just practically, I can't be back in a classroom. And like my stress wise, like I'm very mindful now of how my relationship to stress pre-cancer and my relationship with stress now. Now I don't stress a lot about a lot of things. I trust God. Like that's my motto now. Like trust God, bro. Like that's the biggest like thing that I say now, because why am I going to carry all these burdens? Why am I going to carry the world on my shoulder? Like I did that before and I believe it internalized in me. And maybe that's what caused the mass. Maybe that's what caused me to eat bad and get lack of sleep and lack of self-care. And so I don't stress out anymore like I used to. So, which caused me to make a change in my career path. Marrying people gives me joy. I love dressing up. I love officiating two individuals who found their soulmate, who love each other and are ready to spend the rest of their life together. That brings me joy. That's not stressful. That's actually easy for me to do. So I'm focusing more on my officiant wedding career. I also do quinceañeras and sweet 16s and baby dedications and funerals. So I'm really focusing more on that side of my career. But cancer has really opened up more opportunities for me to speak at conventions, speak at cancer events. I actually was asked to be an ambassador for an app called Cancer Buddy. And so the founder, Christina Merrill, her and I, we had a conversation. She's like, I would love for you to become an ambassador for the app. So now I do that. I meet with them once a month, and we brainstorm on how to serve others and get people, caretakers and cancer patients, cancer survivors, all connected on this app. So that, and then I've been interviewed on the news and on news outlets, and people are writing stories about esophageal cancer, and I'm really raising awareness about this type of cancer because a lot of people are Googling this cancer and they don't have anybody talking about it. It's
Mhm.
like these statistics and this data, but they don't have a talking head or like a person to say this person had esophageal cancer. What do they know? What can they share with me? So I'm becoming that person, and I'm sharing on my social media and sharing on news interviews, podcasts like this. And so thank you again for that opportunity. But my career path has definitely taken a different form. And it's all centered around what gives me joy and what is not going to be as stressful as my life before. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I love it. And you can see just from this interview, how you described your life prior to cancer and what you were doing, and just go, go, go,
Yeah,
and just making it happen, and just, out there substituting, nurturing. And now, from what I hear, you're finding things that give you joy more,
yeah,
and reducing the things that give you stress less, and really appreciating the relationships like those with your mother and those around you. And what a beautiful thing, right? We take something that's negative,
yeah,
and we find those positive, features of them. So I thank you for sharing your story with us, and giving us that. But before we let you go, we'd like to say, what would you like to let the people who are listening in now know? What was something you would like to let them know?
that's a great question. My message to anyone listening right now um, is just to don't stress out about your diagnosis or your recovery or your career or your kids. Life is too short to be stressed because stress causes you to either not eat or overeat. Stress causes you to make bad decisions. Stress will eat you alive, literally. So my advice, and it's easier said than done, but please trust God. Put your trust in something higher than you. You don't have to carry all these things. And I'm a single parent. I'm someone who was going to college for years and years, and I'm someone who had career changes, and I'm someone who went through a divorce, and I'm someone who had cancer. Like, I get it, guys. Like, I can relate to you in multiple levels. And what I've learned is don't stress out. Don't it's gonna kill you. Like, don't stress out about what am I gonna, when is this gonna end? When is this gonna, how am I gonna make it? What am I gonna do? Just take one thing at a time, one day at a time. And before you know it, you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I made it through that. That is now history. Before, in the beginning of this conversation, I talked about how I completed therapy. One day you will say, I'm not stuck anymore. So that's my message to everyone, that there's hope. Don't stress out. And one day you will not be stuck anymore.
I love it. I love it. Mark Jr., thank you so much for those dropping these gems today. It was a privilege having you on the show. If any of you guys are going through something like this is the episode to listen to. Mark is dropping some gems. We appreciate you. And all those listeners that are out there, listen to me. Being diagnosed is not easy. The people around you, they also feel it,
Hmm.
you know, and it's as if they have been diagnosed with you. But
Yeah.
you as the patient, this is not it's not an easy road, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And we hope that these conversations like this help empower you so that you can have confidence and certainty about your cancer condition. And as I always say, you're not alone in this. We're in this together. This is Kenny Perkins, aka your cancer guy. Until again, I'm out.
So stay connected with us on All Talk Oncology Cancer Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that, right? Wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, make sure you subscribe and continue to spread that word, right? Engage in this, because your engagement can help someone stay alive. And this is what we're talking about. So again, make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Again, this is Kenny Perkins, aka your cancer guy. Until again, I'm out.